The playoffs are here, and you can predict the action all the way to the finals with FanDuel Predicts. Predict the spread, the total points, and even the game-winning moments that make the playoffs. Sign up and get a $25 bonus with FanDuel Predicts.
Offered by FanDuel Prediction Markets, LLC, a registered futures commission merchant. 18 plus bonus is non-withdrawable and expires 7 days after receipt. Trading derivatives involves significant risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Manage your activity with their consumer protection tools. Restrictions apply. See terms at FanDuel.com/predicts/bonus-offer-terms.
Welcome to the 5 o'clock show. It's time for Common Sense. Now, it's Katz and Cosby with John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby, standing for truth, justice, and the American way, bringing common sense to the world. Now, here's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby. Breaking news, WABC.
Well, so many things are happening today. I can't keep track of it. Rita Cosby in the studio with us. Rita, did you watch the press conference that the president had today?
I did. And John, you know what's amazing? I mean, first of all, it was a cabinet meeting with all his cabinet, and I've never seen a person who can handle like 5,000 topics fluidly. I guess the headline from Iran, for everybody's sake, was, "We will only accept a perfect deal. The strait must stay open. There cannot be any restrictions. Nobody can manage it. It's international waters. And if we can't get a perfect deal, there is military action coming." He pointed to Pete Hegseth and said, then he's going to be in charge. The other thing, too, he also talked about New Jersey, the ICE detention center, John, and he said, you know what? He had Mark Wayne Mullen next to him, and Mark Wayne Mullen gave the line of the day, I think. He said, you know what, if they don't like the food inside the detention center, and get this, he said, It's not a Holiday Inn. He said, then go home. He said, don't you dare think it's a Holiday Inn. You're there because you committed a serious crime, and they're murderers and rapists. I mean, it's like fairy tale land.
Why are Democrats supporting murderers and rapists?
Yeah, that's the question.
By the way, I just want to straighten this out, and by the way, Tom Homan is coming on tomorrow with us.
Yeah, he's going to be probably joining us tomorrow, and Tom is on fire about this, I'm telling you.
And I understand the policy, the way I originally discussed it with President Trump, is let's get rid of the murderers, the rapists, the drug dealers, the people that are hurting Americans.
But you know the problem is, John, they don't want to get rid of them. I mean, if you look at who's inside
Are you talking about
detention,
the Democrats don't want to get rid of them?
Yes, they don't. Look at today, you had Nadler and you had Dan Goldman going into the detention center and saying, oh, this is so sad what's happening to these wonderful people. Wonderful people.
And we got some special guests in the studio. Well, first of all, we have the deputy mayor under Rudy Giuliani. We have Rudy Washington. Rumors are that he was related to George Washington, but a person of a little bit different color.
Yeah, they look very similar.
Where's my credit card?
I'll get you. I will charge it to George's relatives. And we have Judge Richard Weinberg. Welcome, Judge. And I must say you were wrong yesterday.
No,
Paxton won.
I knew Paxton would win, but it's still.
He never said that.
Yes, I did.
He never said
I still said
you
it's
just wanted
Trump
to rile
political malpractice.
No, it
you
isn't.
replaced a good man with a questionable character.
No, it isn't.
But
I'm on Trump's side.
By the way, he won handily.
And by 20 points.
Yes.
And a special guest. Introduce our special guest.
Absolutely. And by the way, not just a special guest, one of our favorites, because she's been with us, but she now joins us in studio.
Live and in person.
Live and in person. Congresswoman Anna Paulino Luna from the great state of Florida. I want to give a little background about you because you're amazing. You were elected in 2022 of the 13th district just outside of Tampa there in Florida. And now I love her even more because she's also an Air Force gal of 6 years. And your hubby, too, as well. So this is the best.
Thank you so much. Really happy to be on the show. I know we have a lot to cover today. So
where do we start? I mean, you've done so many things. You've looked into UFOs. You've looked into security things.
Dark money.
Where do you want to start right now?
I think it's really important right now. You know, we're seeing such a political divide in this country, and a lot of people don't even realize that this is all manufactured by foreign governments. And so, you know, all this stuff broke with Hassan Piker being subpoenaed to go testify, and the guy starts singing like a bird, talking about this organization called Party of Socialism and Liberation, and a massive, massive dark money funder, also known as Neville Roy Singham. But the interesting thing here is that I actually sent a letter with Chairman John Comer to the U.S. Treasury last year. And he defied subpoenas to come in and testify to Congress. And so he's being investigated. And I think that this right now is the first move of force from the Trump administration regarding directly shutting down these foreign funding ties that are responsible for communism, potentially tied to known terrorist networks. And as we're seeing in this instance, sowing the division in this country right now.
Now, I've said, and I'd like to find out from you, that all the money supposedly put through some of these American business people,
like the NGOs too,
really,
right?
That it's not really their money; it's that foreign governments are using them to put it through them.
Correct. And what's interesting about Neville Singham, though, specifically, is that he is directly funded by the CCP. He lives in China. And so he's an open Marxist. He does not like this country. And I don't know if you guys remember. Do you guys remember those riots in LA on immigration as soon as President Trump got elected?
Yes.
I called them the Timu riots jokingly because they were all funded back to China. And I did a lot of work with an organization or a woman by the name of Jenica Pound. She runs the page Data Republican on X. But I mean, funding ties named everything. I mean, these people are dead to rights on violating something called FARA, which is the Foreign Agent Registration Act that people are required to do if they are working on behalf of a foreign government. But it's not just them. And so I've been making calls for the administration to reopen this office and look into everything, because I think a lot of people, what they don't realize is when you have a lot of this divide in the country, what people aren't realizing is, A, it's funded. These rights are not organic. But then also, too, there's something called bot farms. And so what bot farms do is you might be arguing with an account that has, let's say, 200 followers or 1,000 followers.
On social media.
On social media, but it's not actually a real person. It's just AI. And what they do is they will artificially inflate algorithm to show a certain position. And it kind of goes along with that saying you never want to be in trouble if you're in a crowd of people, because people will look around and instead of doing the right thing, sometimes they might stay quiet. And I think the same thing exists in politics and in opinions. And so they are essentially basically breaking this country apart. It ties into what we were talking about, Judge, in regards to these data centers, if you want to jump in on that. But it's all China.
Listen, there's an attempt now to control the future of AI, and the Chinese are trying to win that battle. And the way they can win the battle is to stop us from beating them. And how they do that, as the Congresswoman just pointed out, they're using foreign money to create these demonstrations.
Today, by the way, do you know who has one of the biggest ones? It's out west, and it's Kevin O'Leary, who was in the movie with John and with Marty Supreme, the business guy. He owns a big one out there, a big data center, and they're doing these huge protests, and he's even calling out China for organizing it.
Yeah,
exactly right.
I had actually initially, because I love the environment, right? So I would consider myself a green conservative, but I was looking at some of these protests and I was like, this doesn't feel organic. And I kind of started to do a little digging and actually saw something that he had done on his social media talking about how they actually found out that there were bot accounts hitting these social media pages, basically trying to say we shouldn't have these data centers because, and then they were able to track IPs and it did go back to China as well. And so what I think a lot of people don't realize is, even 20 years ago, you could have a conversation with a Democrat and it didn't become completely toxic. Now it's become to the point where people are starting to believe this inorganic engagement. And it's actually leading to a lot of, fracturing in our country to where people now in policy, the more radical people, and I think that you guys are starting to see this in New York City, but the more radical people are replacing the people that are willing to work together. And you're seeing this not just on the left, but also the right. And so as someone that considers myself, to be a thoroughbred Republican, I would have to say that it's actually really, really upsetting to see, because I want my kids to grow up in a country and I love this country. I'm a veteran. And then you understand that this is a foreign operation. So I say I look forward to my life of privacy and beehives when I get out of politics, but I'm going to make it my mission to help reopen the FAR office.
Congresswoman, you live in Tampa, and yesterday there was fireworks in Texas, and there's a lot of problems. Well, which way is the country going to go? And the blue states, California, Illinois, New York, people are moving on down.
Yeah, they are.
What is the pulse of the people in Florida? In Texas, you might not know because we will talk about that. But the pulse of the people, are they realizing, like my good friend, you know how close I am to Gus Bilirakis. Gus called me today that they changed around his district, and he's scared. Is there any support for the Democrats at all in Florida?
Well, the thing is that I'd have to say that the Democrats now that are running for office are very, very radical. I'm not talking about the Democrats of Kennedy's era, right? And there does seem to be a generational gap, and it's largely because of this foreign operation that we saw largely target Gen Z and below on something called TikTok. And TikTok, remember, was Chinese owned. But now what you're seeing is the Democrats, if you're a moderate, they would call you a blue dog Democrat. They don't even want to vote for them. They're not radical enough, right? And so I'd have to say in Florida, we actually have a stronghold. I actually represent many former New Yorkers that have come down to St. Pete. But what I would say is that, we have to be vocal, but then we also have to do our due diligence in understanding that this is essentially a psychological operation using social media and technology to fracture the country. And there's been a generational divide that's really been created between the baby boomer generation, millennials, and then the generation onward, which is Gen Z, that's essentially been kind of duped into believing that these ideas are normal and they're not. I'm happy to debate anyone on these topics, but what I'd have to say is that it is a problem and it is foreign funded, and I'm trying to bring those conversation topics to the forefront, especially with some of my younger peers in Congress.
Well, thank you so much. Please stay with us. We're here. And Rita, why don't you bring in Ari Fleischer, as I understand, is on the phone.
Absolutely. And let's talk about, of course, the big win by President Trump, the power of Trump last night on display in the primary.
Breaking news, WABC.
Well, Trump-backed Ken Paxton won in Texas. So far, President Trump has a 100% track record in these primaries for endorsing candidates that go on and win. And who better than the former White House press secretary, Ari Fleischer. Ari, it's so great to have you here in studio. It's Rita, John. We have Judge Richard Weinberg. We have Rudy Washington. And we also have Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna with us in studio. So, Ari, what did you make, first of all? It was called within an hour, and clearly it was the Trump backing that made all the difference.
Yeah, it was called, I think it was called within 5 minutes or 7 minutes.
Yeah.
If you went to get a hot dog, you missed the results.
Right.
Yeah, it is remarkable how Donald Trump has really put his stamp on the party, but it happened, and I want to remind people, it started to happen before President Trump was elected. This populist movement inside the Republican Party has been long in coming. President Trump turned the movement into a hockey stick in terms of movement, but this has been the shape of the party since Republicans started to lose college-educated graduates, suburban voters. They started to increasingly become Democrats, and blue-collar working people increasingly became Republican. That's a trade I'll take any day.
Yeah, that is. And it was I was watching all of it as it was breaking, Ari, and Cornyn was very gracious and said, look, we have to make sure we keep Texas red. You could tell he's going to support him. And there was a beautiful post sent by President Trump about Cornyn. Even Paxton praised Cornyn. So you could tell it looks like the party is going to coalesce. This is going to be a nasty fight. I mean, the guy on the other side, Tallarico, right away was starting to slam Paxton. And yet this guy, as we were just talking about sort of where are the moderates, people are trying to brush this guy like a moderate. He's not a moderate. I mean, he wants open borders. He says there's 6 sexes. I mean, how is this race going to go?
Yeah, and not eating meat. I mean, I love that part. Like, he couldn't have picked a better state than Texas to make that claim. Look, Texas is the state that Democrats for decades have gone to burn up their money. They want to turn Texas blue. They think they can do it. They believe they have a shot. And so when Beto O'Rourke ran against Ted Cruz, they spent lavish amounts of money to lose handsomely. And ever since then, they keep falling for Lucy and the football, thinking this time they can kick it. Can they kick it this cycle? Will it be such an overwhelmingly Democratic cycle? I do think it's going to be a Democratic cycle. But bear in mind Trump's first midterm, 2018. Republicans lost 41 seats in the House. They picked up 2 seats in the Senate. And that's because of the nature of the races that are up every 2 years in the Senate. And when you look at where the Democrats have opportunities in the Senate in the 2026 cycle, you got to look really hard and far to find places where they really do have a shot at winning. You got to think they can win Texas. really uphill fight for the Democrats.
I agree. We got Judge Richard Weinberg.
All right, good to talk to you again. What troubles me is the fact that so much money was diverted to Texas in the primary, then the runoff, and now you're going to have to spend more money for November. And you have a lot of races out there with very good incumbent senators who are Republican, as well as good candidates where that money and that attention should be spent there. And it's now being diverted because President Trump would not support the incumbent Senator Cornyn. What are your thoughts?
I think that's a fair analysis. I do think it would have been easier with John Cornyn on the ballot. It would have cost less money. And certainly we have races such as North Carolina and Maine that are going to be a little bit closer than Texas should be. So why are we spending money in Texas when we could be spending it in these other places? But having said that, political money is almost got no end to it. I really don't worry about either party running out of money. It seems every cycle they spend more, they raise more, they get more, super PACs spend more. I don't think if Republicans lose any seats anywhere, it's going to be because of money. In Texas, for example, John Cornyn outspent he outspent Ken Paxton by almost 10-1. So money isn't everything as long as you have enough.
Yeah, very well said, Ari Fleischer. Well, Ari, we also have Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna here.
Hey, Ari.
Great to be with you.
Yeah, of course. Hey, I just wanted to ask you, so I know that seats in play this cycle compared to 2018 are actually more so in our favors. And I'm cautiously optimistic. I think if we get out of Iran and really President Trump is able to secure everything with a straight, I think that those oil prices are going to drop like a rock. Do you think, though, that kind of given the political climate, if it were to happen tomorrow, you think that we lose versus if we can secure something with the Iran deal?
Well, here's the states. Republicans have states where we could pick up seats. Arguably, this is a stretch, but these are the four: Minnesota, New Hampshire, Georgia, Michigan. Michigan and Georgia are not stretches. New Hampshire's a mini stretch, and Minnesota's a bigger stretch. 4 seats. Democrats have 7. North Carolina, Maine, and then it starts to get stretchy for them. They think they can pick up Ohio. I don't think so. They think they can pick up Alaska. I don't think so. They think they can pick up Iowa. I definitely don't think so. They think they can pick up Nebraska. I definitely don't think so. And then there's Texas. So in reality, it's each party has about 2 really good, close toss-up races. So give the Democrats an advantage. It's going to be a Democrat year, midterm election. I think the Democrats pick up 1, if they're lucky, 2. And do Republicans pick up any Democrat seats and cut into that? I don't rule that out. I think Michigan could be a flop for the Democrats, and I think the Democrats could blow their chance in Maine.
You know, you talked about Maine, Ari Fleischer. I can't believe still that this guy's, looks like leading on the Democratic side, Graham Plattner. And he's got the Nazi tattoo. And again today, he was asked, I don't know if you saw this, Ari, again, will you, apologize for trashing veterans? He was trashing Ted Daniels, who was this Purple Heart recipient, saying he was a coward, essentially. I mean, it was just horrible. And Chris Kyle, great American hero of American Sniper. And again, he will not apologize. Isn't it amazing that this guy's even on the ballot?
Well, he's called himself a communist. He said that all police are bastards, his word. He called himself a vegetable-growing, psychedelic-taking socialist. I mean, he and Tallarico should get together on that one. It would amaze me if he does win in Maine. It would just have to be such a disastrous cycle for Republicans, for Democrats to look beyond all this guy's foibles. But what gives me caution here is the Democrats had a candidate run for Attorney General in the state of Virginia who sent an email threatening to kill the children of the Republican Speaker of the Assembly in Virginia. It was public about a month before the election, and he still won. So the Democrats just have this zeal to defeat Trump, and no matter what, and they equate everybody with Trump, made all the elections about Trump, and that can take them places, particularly in a close state like Maine.
Ari, John Katzimatidis, it's going to be November is going to be a tough race, but I think it could happen for President Trump. How many of the Democrats that are running are what they've tried to do is bring in, like in Virginia, former CIA person to be deemed like pro-America. In New Jersey, a former
military pilot,
person, et cetera, et cetera. How many supposedly they look like common sense Democrats are they have versus really crazy Democrats?
Well, that was their thinking, right, that they couldn't win with the crazies. But this cycle in Texas and Maine, they're going with their crazies. So, yeah, they want to stay. They've got moderates in places. In Texas 35 in a House race, they did defeat in a Democratic primary a crazy anti-Semite and elected a sheriff's deputy in the Democratic primary. That's a run to the moderate side. But in other places, they can't control themselves, and their wacky extremists are winning. So they're all over the map, is how I would put the Democrats. And the question is really going to be, who's got the wind behind their back? Is it a Democrat cycle or a Republican cycle? Because that is more important than anything, even candidate quality. If there's a powerful anti-democratic year, great for Republicans. That's what happened in Obama's 2 midterms. Powerful anti-Republican year. That's what the first midterm was for Trump in the House, not the Senate, though.
Rudy Washington.
Harry, good to talk to you again. Listening to the Congresswoman next to me, you realize that this just didn't happen overnight. This is a 30-year taking patriotism out of education, taking religion out of education, and now what you're looking at is a generational divide. And if you watch and talk to some of these young people, it scares me when they say they are college graduates and don't know the answer to basic questions about the history of our country. And I also want to go to one other point. John might get upset with me, but I think...
why would I get upset?
Because you're not going to like what I'm going to say.
It's okay, I'll let you know.
I love how we air it all out on the air.
But I know Judge is going to be saying, say it, Rudy.
Say it, Rudy. Say it.
I think the president is making a major mistake. I think he gives the leverage all to Iran. You cannot negotiate with a rattlesnake. I think what they would do, they would sit back and say, yeah, we got a deal until October. And then they'll start firing on ships. And the media, which is anti-America as far as I'm concerned.
I agree with you 110%.
I would not give them that leverage.
No, I agree with you 110%. But knowing how the president thinks and knowing how I think, I'm going to give you my version of it. That the midterm elections is more important than those stupid Iranians. Okay? That's the way I feel.
Yeah, if I can just jump into, I think a lot of people forget, too, that President Trump just going to China recently was, I think, very strategic in these negotiations.
Yes.
But then also, too, he does have a respected relationship with also Vladimir Putin. And I think those two powers not backing Iran and understanding that even on his board of peace, they actually are engaged in conversations. That is actually maintaining the United States position in these negotiations. And then also, too, I think bringing down tensions. I think people forget that in all of this.
And I understand that Putin and they're devious. Putin and Xi are both devious, and they'll supply money, but they don't want nuclear war.
Correct.
So that's the most important thing. The American people, no nuclear war among Russia, China, and the United States.
Correct.
And open the Strait of Hormuz has to be open.
So,
not negotiable.
Not negotiable. Iran should not have a nuclear weapon.
Yes.
I agree. 100%.
Yeah, let's go to Ari, you guys. Ari, your thoughts.
Ari is on guest.
Yep.
I'm starting to come around to a different theory about what's going on and why we're not going back after Iran militarily. Byron York, in his column yesterday, started to allude to this. I can't help but wonder if the president has been told by both the intelligence agencies and DOD that using force again against Iran is not going to topple the regime. Because it's so obvious to me, if the regime would be toppled by us using force, Donald Trump would topple the regime in a heartbeat and be done with this. So there's got to be a rational reason we're not doing that, and I have a hard time thinking that Donald Trump used military force in June of last year.
Yep.
There's something we don't know.
Is philosophically opposed to it. There's something deeper here, and I can't help but think that's the only explanation.
There's an additional explanation, Ari, that the military is not going to talk to you about it. We stopped. We tried to interfere with Iran closing off the Strait of Hormuz because we don't want to use our carriers or destroyers to escort the tankers.
The tankers, right?
It's not a safe thing to do, especially in a day of supersonic missiles, where 5 seconds later you say, "Oh crap, it's coming."
Right.
Okay.
By the way,
so that's the problem. Militarily,
Right.
we don't want to. We don't want to go that direction. It's going to take too long to choke them to death with the Strait of Hormuz.
Yep.
And
go ahead, Ari. Go ahead, Ari. Yeah, go ahead.
What I think is holding Donald Trump back right now, I don't know that I agree with that, because I do think there are analyses out there that say that this is a brittle regime and it will fall, it will topple, and that we do have the ability to do it. I am surprised that we announced Operation, whatever it's called, Projected Freedom, the escorts of the ships. We announced it, and then 36 hours later, we unannounced it. That was odd. We can escort those ships through there if we want to, but again, what's the military price? For whatever the reason is, the president has decided that he's not willing to, at least it seems, pay that price.
Well, this is going to take further discussion, and I hope you come back on with us another day this week.
Yeah, we love you, Ari. Thank you,
so
Ari.
much, Ari.
Thank
Great
you.
to be with you guys.
Thank you, Ari.
Thank you. And we're going to take a break.
Yep, and then
And
we
then
have
we'll come back with
Professor Alan Dershowitz.
A common sense recap of the day's biggest stories. It's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby. Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC.
And joining us now is Professor Alan Dershowitz. And boy, there is so much going on, Professor. Let's start with the DOJ suing UCLA over a lot of their, I guess, complacent behavior towards anti-Semitism. Where is this going?
Well, I think it's more than a complacent behavior. I think it's complicit behavior. I think what's happening is many universities, UCLA among them, is terrified of these anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, anti-American protesters, and they just sit back and let it happen. They would never, ever allow some of these things to be said about African Americans or about gays or about women. But Jews are different, and Israel's different, and the rules are different. And what the Justice Department is telling everybody, UCLA, Harvard, and any school that is receiving federal funding, is what you would do to people who said the same thing about blacks, about Muslims, about gays, you must do to people who say the same things about Jews. You cannot have a double standard. That's the message. And it isn't being received by many universities because they are terrified of the woke hard left, and they're not so terrified of the Jews. And I think that the Justice Department is appropriately putting a little bit of the fear of God or the fear of Trump into their mind, because they know they're going to lose funding if they don't shape up.
You know, Professor Dershowitz, are you stunned that after all the big hearings and everything else that happened, it still seems like these universities aren't getting the message? I'm glad that they're following up on them because this was from 2024, but it still seems like a lot of universities are allowing these protests. You look in New York, we got a mayor who says, oh, it's First Amendment. I mean, come on.
Well, it's First Amendment if it's applied equally to everybody, but if it's applied differentially in a double standard and only protests against Israel and Jews are allowed to make the kinds of statements that they made, calling for the death of Jews, calling for, you know, whatever they're saying, they would never tolerate that about other groups, and it has to be a single standard. And you can't receive federal funding if you're violating the rules. And many of these universities, including the ones I went to and the ones I taught at, are not applying a single standard. And that's just wrong.
You know, Professor, there's also this food co-op. We were talking about this recently with you, this boycott of Israeli products in Park Slope, Brooklyn. How can they do that? How is that? That sounds like you are boycotting based on religion. That seems way over the top.
And there's very, very few products that are being sold there. One of them is matzah. Matzah. They won't allow you to buy matzah because some of the matzah is made by Jews in Israel. Now, they're perfectly happy to sell Chinese products, They're perfectly happy to sell Russian products, perfectly happy to sell Cuban products. If they had Sudanese products, they would be selling them as well, where there's real genocide going on. But only Jewish products are being boycotted. First, I think there should be a lawsuit. That is, the people who run the board at this co-op, they don't have the authority. They have the authority to make decisions about food, about good prices on food. Who gave them the authority to make decisions about boycotts? That's not within their bylaws, and it's ultra-virus. And I'm sure there's some degree of governmental funding that goes somewhere into these co-ops, and they ought to be looked at from a legal point of view. And by the way, nobody should buy anything at this co-op. They should be put out of business because of their bigotry.
Professor John Catsimatidis, I just want to straighten it out in my own head. Are they banning Israeli products, or are they banning Jewish products? If the matzahs were made in Brooklyn, would they allow it to be sold?
I think so. I think they're banning only Israel products, but I think they're banning all Israel products, not only products that are made in disputed territories, but, products that are made in Tel Aviv, and they're picking only one country, and they're only picking the nation state of the Jewish people. Yeah, now, if you're going to start boycotting food from countries, do it in the order of how terrible they are on human rights.
I'm going to boycott food from China. I'm going to boycott food for China for sure.
I think a lot of people will be cheering that. Hey, before we let you go,
I love
Professor.
Chinese food. I love Chinese food.
I do too.
What can I tell you?
I like American Chinese food.
It does taste better.
Yes. I mean, the Chinese restaurants go out of business if the Jews stopped eating it on Sunday nights.
That's true. And on Christmas Day, remember Justice Kagan was asked in her confirmation hearings what she did for Christmas, and she said, well, my family always goes out for Chinese food. I don't ever want to ban Chinese food, but I don't want to ban Israeli food. Let people choose. You have people who go to a co-op. Let them pick. Let them have a sign. I don't even mind if you have a sign, or give out a leaflet saying, we don't think you should choose to buy Israeli food. Let people decide. But banning the food completely while leaving the food of others is a violation of all kinds of rights.
So let me ask you before you go, Professor Dershowitz, this is wild. Former President Biden now scrambling because he is trying to block the release of those secret tapes that he had when he was doing the book. And Robert Hur, the, of course, independent counsel, looked at it, and he apparently was bumbly. President Trump was asked about it and said, hey, put it out there. Can President Biden block those tapes?
No. Ultimately, the tapes will come out. Look, if you want to get the tapes out...
What did he do? I'd like to know what he did. What did President Biden say?
Well, he's trying to stop the actual videotape, which shows how he was while he was president. And I think the American public has the right to see that. Yeah. Look, if you want to get it out...
I agree with you. I agree. Everybody has the right to see it.
Just claim that Biden talked about Epstein. Then they'll say, turn it out, put it out, get it out there. If it's about Epstein, you put everything out. Remember, they put out every deposition on Epstein, every private email, every secret. But suddenly when the president of the United States is deposed in a formal legal proceeding, that somehow can't be disclosed to the public. That's absurd. So in the end, they will come out. I guarantee you we will see him humbling and bumbling, and probably everybody will be disappointed. He's not as bad as people say he is, and he's not as good as his supporters say he is. It'll be somewhere in between. But it'll be interesting to see the President of the United States, on videotape answering hard questions. That's the right of the American public.
Absolutely. Well, we'll look for that when that happens. Professor Dershowitz, we love you. Thank you for joining us as always.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Professor Dershowitz. And Rita, now we have the top news of the day, brought to us by Goya Foods, and I love those Goya beans.
They are the best.
It's the top news of the day, sponsored by Goya. Here's Rita Cosby.
And everybody, here are the big headlines, John, from Goya. President Trump says no country can control the Strait of Hormuz, calling it an international waterway. Trump dismissed reports of a deal involving Iran and Oman and said that the U.S. may even watch over the strait. And also, attorneys general of New York and New Jersey are investigating FIFA World Cup ticket sales. Officials say fans may have been misled about the seating locations they bought for matches at MetLife Stadium, alleging FIFA's public statements and ticket releases are contributing to the soaring ticket prices. I can't believe FIFA. Big World Cup is going to be starting very soon. And, John, we're going to take a break. Coming up, we have Paul Perez from the Border Patrol Union. He's going to talk about those protests that are taking place outside the detention center, the ICE detention center.
You're talking about New Jersey all over again.
All over again.
And I'm looking forward to see what the Congresswoman has to say about that.
And at some point, let's talk about the $150 New Jersey Transit want to charge people to go 3 miles.
Yeah, exactly, for the FIFA. That's crazy.
That's $50 a mile.
Yeah.
Just walk.
Normally $12. Congresswoman,
let's take that break. Yeah.
You're commuting home with Katz and Cosby. Now, here's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby on 77 WABC. Breaking news, WABC.
Well, the protests continued today outside the ICE detention center in New Jersey. And, John, I love this line at the beginning. Mark Wayne Mullen, who is the new, of course, Homeland Security Secretary, said if they don't like the food that's being given to them, leave. This is not a Holiday Inn. Well, joining us now because they're protesting to try to empty out the detention center full of murderers, rapists, pedophiles. You look at the list of who's in there, it's unbelievable. Joining us now is Paul Perez. He's head of the Border Patrol Union. And Paul, when you see these Democrats out there protesting for the rights of illegal criminal migrants, some of the worst, what do you think?
I wonder when they're going to get it. I wonder when they're going to realize that these people are not their constituents. American citizens that are footing the bill are their constituents, and that's who they should be in favor of instead of out there protesting for the rights of illegal immigrants.
Yeah, it really is shocking. And inside, they're complaining about the food. It makes me think of like in New York, we had these hotels where some of the illegal migrants were complaining about the food at the 4- and 5-star hotels. Also, by the way, Paul, we have with us Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna from Florida. Congresswoman.
Hey, Paul, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. I actually had a question for you. So I was in committee last Congress, and we had a member of the Border Patrol in. And, I personally think that this is a lot of pandering to the Hispanic voting demographic, being that it's now the largest voting minority in the country. But if you could just tell the listeners real quick, what percentage on average are your colleagues over at Border Patrol? Because from what I'd gathered, it's about roughly 50% Hispanic.
Yeah, we're over 50% Hispanic, and in some locations, they're upwards of 80 and 90% Hispanic. And we're dealing in the Hispanic neighborhoods. We're dealing along the southwest border, so we know the border very well. And we still, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you've seen it. They're still going to call us racist. They're still going to call us Nazis, and they're still going to attack us for enforcing the law that Congress has put on the books.
Oh, 100%. We appreciate everything that you're doing. And I just want to close out, I guess, with this, and that, a majority of the women and children that were trafficked were of Hispanic demographic. And I always find it so extremely hypocritical when you see these people largely attending protests that have been organized and funded by, organizations that have ties to foreign funding like China, which is probably in the instance of New Jersey what's happening. But then also, too, you have this aspect of they don't want to talk about, the demographic that's most impacted, and it is Hispanic Americans. And so we appreciate your service. And also, I guess I'll just end with this. I think that this is propaganda. I think the largest voting minority in the country are Hispanic Americans of Mexican descent. They try to tell you that those are the people coming in. They don't talk about the military age males from China or from the Middle East or from Africa. Right. And, and everything that we're seeing right now in this country, I couldn't applaud you more for your efforts. So thank you.
Thank you. And that's why that's exactly the reason that the Hispanic community is trending towards Republicans, because it's what they believe in protecting this country and not being taken advantage of. And so, yeah, we thank you for your advocacy, and very, very great to talk with you.
And by the way, we got a little bit of breaking news here, Paul.
Breaking news, WABC.
You can't make this up. Things are definitely getting out of control at this ICE detention center. It's just crossing that these anti-ICE rioters allegedly blasted federal agents with chemical substances. And if you look at some of the scenes I was looking at, they were pushing and shoving and beating the officers. I mean, that's a felony, right? I mean, you can't be spraying substances on officers.
Oh, yeah, that's a huge officer safety matter. We don't know what, I don't know what happened there, but we don't know if somebody blasts us with any kind of chemicals or any kind of liquids. You don't know what's in that. I mean, it could be acid. It could be something that could, rip right through any of your protective clothing. So, yeah, I would definitely make sure that every single one of those people are arrested and charged with felonies. And under this Department of Justice, we're certain it'll happen.
Oh, well, I promise you, we will ensure that you guys are taken care of. People that do that have no welcome, opened arms from the DOJ. I'll tell you that much.
I mean, that should be a federal offense when you hit a federal officer like that. Then take them and throw them back in. Throw them in that same facility.
Exactly. Spraying them with substantive. Who knows? I mean,
guys. Enough is enough.
Absolutely. Paul Perez, thank you. We love having you on, Paul. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. You stay strong. We're with you. And joining us now, you guys, we have General Arnold Punaro, retired U.S. Marine Corps Major General. He's head of the Punaro Group. General, let's get to it. What's going to happen, do you think, with Iran? President Trump today said, we're working. It's only going to be a good deal. He said, I'm only going to accept a great deal. I'm not going to accept some mediocre deal. And he said, or else I won't hesitate to use, and he pointed to his Secretary of War, and he said, military action. What do you think is going to happen, or what do you think needs to happen?
Well, I would say it's reassuring the president remains extremely firm in his two major objectives, which is Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. They won't have access to their current stockpile of enriched uranium, and they have to give up their future nuclear ambitions. And number two, they have to open the Straits of Hormuz so it's not controlled by them or anyone else, freedom of navigation. And he's basically said, I'm patient, I'm sticking to my guns, and those two things should be conditions precedent to any further negotiations or perhaps any compromises on the part of the United States of America. And I believe from what the president said today in his cabinet meeting, he's firm in that resolve. And I think he's right. No deal is better than a mediocre deal or a bad deal.
One of the things he said, General, too, about the Strait, this was a wild statement because someone asked, okay, well, Oman and Iran might try to do some deal to control the Strait. And President Trump, without hesitation, said, whoever blocks us in the Strait or blocks, free and fair navigation, we will shoot them out. I mean, he's mincing no words how important that is.
That's extremely important because it would set a terrible precedent. 90% of the world's commerce, 80% of U.S. commerce is still seaborne. We've got to keep the sea lanes open. We cannot allow a precedent to be set that a country or a couple of countries can control an international waterway. The next thing you would have is the South China Sea, China saying the $5 trillion of the world's economy that transits the South China Sea, they need to pay us. Or the Strait, or Malaysia might say, okay, we're going to start charging from the Straits of Malacca. So this is a fundamental precept that has to be enforced, and the president seems to be spot on in that regard.
General, I want to also ask you, because President Trump obviously has an open pipeline to talk with Putin. Putin was over there in China. Trump was over in China, different times, obviously, but soon after each other. What's going on? What is your sense with what's happening? Could maybe something be coming together there? It seems like Ukraine may be turning the tide with Russia. What are your thoughts?
Well, I certainly hope Ukraine is turning the tide with Russia. We can't allow Russia to be successful in Ukraine. They wouldn't stop at Ukraine. I go all the way back to President Ronald Reagan when it comes to Russia. Trust but verify. I am not a big fan of trusting Putin on any front. So I don't believe, frankly, I hate to say it, I don't think there's anything positive going on there. The only thing that's going to get Putin to heel is going to be Ukraine succeeding militarily as they appear to be doing, although they're paying a huge, huge price for that.
General John Catsimatidis, a quick one. Is President Xi from China and Putin from Russia, Are they tired of the war and they're looking for a little bit of peace right now? What is your gut feeling?
I don't believe so. I mean, Putin and Xi are ruthless dictators that don't care about the impact on their own population. They want total control. I don't think they are affected by things like that. And unfortunately, during the peak of the Cold War, we wanted Russia and China to be each other's throats. The Soviets had 44 divisions on the Mongolian border because they were worried about China invading Russia. And now, unfortunately, they're working together. So that's an unfortunate development. I think they are not tired in that respect that you asked.
And they do, by the way, have they moved some of those 44 divisions to the Polish border? Is that the reason Trump?
Absolutely. No, that's the problem. I wish they were still tied down to the Mongolian border. They're using them. And you've got Putin now threatening the Baltic states. So he's relentless in his push to recreate Mother Russia and expand his borders to the west.
Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna.
Yeah, this one's more or less just commentary, General, and thank you for coming on. But, I would have to say that Zelensky might be in better shape if he wasn't back channeling all the money that we'd given him into Joe Biden's reelection campaign. So the problem right now is that we can't continue funding this war. I think that things are getting expensive all the way around, and that if you have someone that wants war but doesn't want to foot the tab, it's not the responsibility of the American taxpayer. So I am rooting absolutely for President Trump's negotiations in these peace deals, and I'm hopeful. I think he'll get there. But ultimately, at the end of the day, when President Obama was in and this happened, no one said anything. And now all of a sudden people want war, and I'm tired of the war machine.
Well, I would say I think that President Trump's done a tremendous job in getting the Europeans to, carry more of the burden of their own defense in NATO, but also carry more of the burden in helping Ukraine against Russia because it's a European continent. So I think there's progress there.
Yeah, and listen, he's trying for negotiations. You got to give him a lot of credit. President Trump, big time, has been doing that. Well, thank you, General Arnold Punaro. Really great discussion. Wonderful to have you here.
Anytime. Thank you.
Thank you. And John, we got some breaking news before our next guest.
Breaking news, WABC.
And a lot of focus on Mondani, the mayor of New York, and these government-run grocery stores. There's a news story out that an East Harlem grocery store site already got $25 million in New York City taxpayer funds years ago. He's, of course, saying it's going to cost a lot more when this is all done.
Well, let me straighten this out. They got $25 million, La Marqueta.
Yes.
And now they want another $30 million because I understand that the mayor's office is going for $70 million, which was what we always talked about.
Right, which is a lot of money, as you and I talked about, for a grocery store.
John, you can buy a grocery store for $3.5 million.
Well, let's go to Frank Garcia.
Yep.
And Frank Garcia is the CEO of the. Tell us about your organization, Frank.
Yeah, Frank, you're head of the coalition, right? All these multicultural coalitions, and you have a big event, Protect Ethnic Supermarkets and Grocery Stores. So tell us about it.
Yes. Hi, Rita. Hi, John. First, it's an honor to be here on this show. On Friday, we're getting all the ethnic chambers together to defend the supermarkets. Like you know, Rita, my grandfather was head of the Latin Grocery Association in the 1960s, opened the first Puerto Rican bodega in the 1950s in La Marqueta. He must be rolling in his grave right now what the mayor wants to do in the Marqueta. We have 6 ethnic chamber members, supermarkets, that are going to be in. Ruben Luna has, you know him, he has 19 supermarkets, started bagging groceries. Now he owns 19 supermarkets. They're going to put him out of business right across the street from the Marqueta.
Now, are you saying that the supermarkets, I don't know about this, the supermarket that the city wants to open up for $30 million a few blocks away from La Marqueta is going to be competing with La Marqueta?
Our members are right across the street. We have Ruben Luna that's like 3 blocks away. He will not compete food. He will not be able to compete with not paying rent, not paying light, not paying insurance. You know, you own a supermarket, you pay everything. It's not fair and it's not American.
So what's your message to the mayor? What's your thoughts about all this?
The mayor is, let's meet with us. Let's do a supermarket forum. to help bring down the cost. We created the first group purchasing organization for minority businesses in Latin America and the Caribbean. We could bring down the cost. Our members, the Korean groceries and the others, I spoke to them today, they're willing to give shelves for free just to be able to help the local supermarkets and deal with this issue. But the mayor doesn't want to sit down. He'll sit down with you, John, but he won't sit down with the ethnic supermarkets that have sacrificed like you have.
And why do you think it is? Why do you think he's not sitting down with you guys? Because obviously you're an important part of this.
Yeah, look, as head of the Hispanic Chamber, I'm still head till December. He has not sat down with us. We have been very clear that we would like to sit down with him to talk about the issues. He doesn't want, we're not BlackRock, we're not the big corporations that he's sitting down. I think he's more focused on that than small businesses.
Well, that's an important point to bring out. I'm glad we're talking about it. And I know you're going to have some big events later this week. Frank Garcia, keep up the good fight for all the businesses there in
John,
New York.
I hope to have you there on Friday because this is a fight that we're all involved in. Thank you for your support, John.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And listen, you want whatever's fair to all people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And let's take a break, and when we come back,
we have Joe Concha, and he's got some interesting stuff. You can't
and I
wait.
want to hear some more from the Congresswoman.
You know what? I think I do too.
Recap of the big stories. It's Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC.
And we are back here on Katz and Cosby. And before we go to Joe Concha, let's bring back in our great special guest here in studio, Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna. And Congresswoman, first of all, you were what, like the third member of Congress to endorse President Trump?
Correct. I was the third out the gates, and I was actually in New York City when they were waging lawfare against him. So we go way back.
You go way back. And you've got, his big thing is transparency. I mean, it really means a lot to him. You've been fighting the good fight on that. Do you have any updates sort of on the JFK stuff?
Yeah, so I lead the task force of declassification of federal secrets. So it's to ensure that his executive orders, there's follow through. So we cover everything from JFK to MLK to RFK to the UAP stuff, and even into the Jeffrey Epstein files. And what I will tell you is we have a report that's being written by one of our investigators, Jefferson Morley. That's going to be coming out this November. So it will be publicly available for the American people. But of the thousands upon thousands of records that were finally declassified. So remember, president after president had tried to do this, and it wasn't until President Trump got in that Director Radcliffe and ODNI Gabbard were actually able to deliver on these declassification of files. But we did find evidence that the CIA did indeed undermined congressional investigations into the assassination of Kennedy, destroyed evidence. We had multiple witnesses come in, one of which was a physician who actually had been in the room when Kennedy was brought to the Dallas hospital shortly after he had been shot. This gentleman was into his 90s and did testify that there were multiple entry wounds from both the front and the back. And so people say, well, will you ever find the smoking gun? The fact is that there has been evidence destruction. We're never going to find, I think, the exact names. However, what I will say is that if you put together the mosaic pieces of evidence, you can see the picture that the CIA did engage in a coup against a sitting president. I think this gets into the fact that President Kennedy at the time wanted peace. He wanted to end the Cold War. He was seen as a radical, but he wasn't supported by his own cabinet. And ultimately, if you actually go back in history and kind of see similarities then today, what we're seeing with President Trump and his foreign policy, it's unfortunate what happened to Kennedy, but it's equally as important that the American people know, because for so long they questioned, they had this distrust in the country, and it really all stems back into what happened with Kennedy.
Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, you are more right than wrong.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're a hero fighting the good fight. I love it.
Let's go to Joe Concha, see what he thinks.
Yeah, absolutely. Joe, your thoughts on this, what you're hearing?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts, guys, but unfortunately I'm coaching my my kids' Little League team right now, literally, and I just got almost hit by a ball in the head. Okay.
What, Doc?
I'm sorry.
Doc.
Don't damage the ball.
Don't damage the ball.
I've been nailed so many times this year. It's scary. Never coach first base if you're not paying attention. Anyway, what was just played? I'm sorry, guys. This is unprofessional on my part.
Well, no, we were just talking about transparency.
Move on.
One of the things, Joe, that you and I were talking about earlier, and this is wild, with Joe Scarborough, we were talking about what's going on at the New Jersey detention center, the ICE detention center. You got the worst of the worst there. And you've got the mainstream media coming out. Joe Scarborough called it an internment camp?
Yeah, that sounds very Nazi-ish to me, doesn't it? And then that's the thing. I mean, Scarborough, remember, guys, he was a Republican. He had a show called Scarborough Country on MSNBC. I used to go on like 20-something years ago, and he seemed like a pretty normal mainstream guy, but now it's all about how do I get that next contract from MS Now by saying the most provocative things possible that are completely reckless, irresponsible, and to call it an internment camp? No, these are, as you said, these are criminals that have been detained, that are in the country illegally, and now will be deported. It's not internment, and the fact that he's saying that, well, that's what leads to the types of stuff where we see ICE agents getting shot at or attacked, or President Trump assassination attempts over and over again because of that sort of rhetoric, guys.
Yeah, it is. And then you have an update on Kathy Hochul versus Trump and the Knicks.
Oh, thank you. So, yeah, she's interviewed today, and obviously the Knicks going to the finals, first time since '99. A lot of people are excited. So Trump is a huge Knicks fan. He used to be at Madison Square Garden all the time. And obviously Hochul, since she's the governor of New York, has to pretend that she's a Knicks fan. So she was asked by a reporter, like, hey, what's your message for Donald Trump when he's a big Knicks fan? You're a Knicks fan. Are you guys going to come together? And she says, well, I'd love for him to name the starting five from the 1993 New York Knicks championship team. Only problem is the Knicks didn't win a championship in '93. They were knocked out by Michael Jordan and the Bulls in the Eastern Conference Finals, and she was about 20 years off on that one. So I just found that to be the greatest thing ever, because clearly this is somebody who's pandering and trying to take a shot at Trump instead of saying, yeah, we're all want the Knicks to win, and the president and I are together on this one. She can't even do that in this situation.
Yeah, you got to get your sports straight, right? What do you think, Rudy Washington?
Oh, definitely. I mean, who was it? Willis Reed, I think, was the center.
Yeah, what do you think, Joe?
73. Yeah, Will Reed was the center, and he famously came out and he was limping and won that game. And again, but that was.
Well, we make her make a statement. She didn't know what she was talking about.
And you know what? It's part of this whole like sort of Trump derangement syndrome. It's like he was so happy about the Knicks because he said, "Oh, I love that the Knicks they're going off to the playoffs. He might even come to a game at Madison Square Garden." And yet Democrats won't even say, "Oh, how beautiful, how great that he's cheering on the Knicks," right, Joe? I mean, this is just part of Trump derangement syndrome.
Joe, I'm trying to reach back. Was that Bill Bradley, Walt Frazier, Dick Barnett?
Yes.
Oh, wow. That was a good team. Yeah, that was a good
team.
That was an amazing team.
93 was a great team. Don't get me wrong. It was a great team, but
they weren't the big.
You went against Michael Jordan. No, it was Michael Jordan, right? He didn't get through. No one did. So, yeah, they lost in 6, and that was Ewing, and that was John Starks, and they fell a little short. But don't try to take a shot at Trump and have zero idea what you're talking about, Kathy Hochul. So that thing's gone viral. Millions of people have seen it, and it's just the greatest thing ever. I'm playing it on my show over and over again tonight, and we're going to love it.
It is great. And by the way, Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, it's sort of this whole like anything Trump does, oh, it can't be right. You know, even on the war on Iran, oh, no, it can't be. Oh, it's good. It's bad. Anything Trump is for. You see it in Congress.
We see it all the time. In fact, I'm unfortunately also too seeing it with the programming of younger people. Remember, he said, don't take Tylenol. It can cause autism with children. You had pregnant women chugging Tylenol. So I don't think, people unfortunately suffer from Trump derangement syndrome. And I think that that's very alive and well. But in Congress, what we're finding is it's so hard, even on the peace deals that he's been able to negotiate, for these people to actually congratulate him. Everything to them is obstruct. They've literally said it out loud that if they maintain or they take the House and the Senate in the midterms, that they'll ultimately just launch impeachment after impeachment and investigation. And so, unfortunately, that's kind of the card that we've been dealt. So don't sit out the midterms, show up and vote.
Yeah, great point. And John, the midterms, the stakes couldn't be higher, to your point, too, because they've already said what their plan is.
Yeah, exactly. And look, TDS is a very tough thing, I mean, if you suffer from TDS more than 4 hours, it's like me with Viagra, but different in terms of, if you suffer from TDS for more than 4 hours, don't see a doctor, see your shrink, because you got a real problem.
Joe, that's a lot of information.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Don't take any Viagra while coaching the baseball team. And whatever you all stand for.
Truth, justice, and the American way.
And now we'll join Mark Levin in progress.
And thank you for being with us,
Thanks
Congresswoman.
For having
we love having you.
Thanks for listening to Katz and Cosby with John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby. You can hear Katz and Cosby weekdays at 5. It's the 5 o'clock show on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?